All right. So today is May 4th, and which means it's National Weather Observers Day, a day that provides a day for people, I should say, who enjoy watching and observing weather. This is a very important job. We have Melissa Griffin, the Assistant State Climatologist for South Carolina. Melissa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course. I got to ask the first question. What makes uh, volunteer weather observations so important?
So, when it comes to those volunteer weather observers, I mean, they are instrumental in helping us track the variability and the trends that we currently see in, our day-to-day weather and our long-term climate. And that's everything from tracking temperatures to precipitation and having them provide that additional information helps fill in gaps where we may not necessarily have like a National Weather Service station or like a NC State EcoNet station. I know you guys have your own Mesonet in North Carolina. So having those additional observations really does kind of help give us a better picture of what's going on.
Well, why are they so important, and especially in the age of AI automation? I, can you elaborate on that? Because everything is like you go to ChatGPT or you go to Perplexity, but what makes them so unique outside of that?
So, traditional weather observations back to the late 1800s, even the early 1800s, were all done manually. And so being able to carry on that manual transition or that manual like timeline of observations from different locations, you were able to kind of really track that trend using some of the same instrumentation that they used back in like the 1800s. So, for example, a standard rain gauge was like an 8-inch diameter rain gauge, and we have observers that are tracking, using a 4-inch diameter rain gauge, which is very similar to that 8-inch. And so we can go back and we can actually look at those trends. There's been so many changes in instrumentation over the years. We've gone from mercury thermometers to digital thermometers, and even having those changes in instrumentation can kind of the precision of those changes over time. And in the era of, like you said, satellites and AI,
Mhm.
having the ground truth is just really important. I mean, we get so many of our observations from satellite imagery, radar estimates, but being able to actually make sure that what we're seeing on those radar estimates matches the ground truth is really important too.
There's been a lot of talk, Melissa, about obviously climate change. How is that affected when it comes, your job as far as keeping these weather records?
So, having the observers, over time, it's fantastic to see the changes that we see at the local level. So that's everything from microclimate changes to, large shifts in the overall patterns. Like, what is the impact of like El Nino or La Nina on our weather here in the southeast? And so, being able to go back in time, we have a couple of stations here in South Carolina that have been at the same family, same residence since 1892, and we're able to go back and look at that data over a period of time, and we can see the cycles that we see, from wet periods and dry periods, cooler than normal temperatures to above normal temperatures, and that really does kind of help us get a better idea of the variability that we do see in our climate.
If James Briarton here, James knows everything. I was going to put
That's
it
generous.
there. But James, you have a question?
I do. So, Melissa, you're talking about residents who've been in the same place for many, many decades. You provided us a map of some of these community volunteer observers, folks who are listening to you right now. How can they join in and submit localized weather reports?
Well, one of the best ways to do that is through the CoCoRaHS program. CoCoRaHS stands for Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. And this is a program that came out of the response to the 1997 flood in Fort Collins, where they were doing a bucket survey, literally going door to door, trying to see who had a rain gauge to determine how much rain had actually fallen in the foothills just north of the campus of Colorado State University versus what was actually observed at the National Weather Service site. And what they found was 14.5 inches had fallen in the foothills. And all of that water came out of the foothills and went right through the campus. And it did a ton of damage. Unfortunately, there were some people that lost their lives. And as they were doing the bucket survey, they realized that people were tracking the weather which was great because they were able to pull that data in. But there was such a curiosity as to how much rain actually fell that they tapped into that curiosity and started the program. And so everybody uses the same rain gauge, and they, over the years, have expanded from the Colorado Front Range to the entire U.S., the CONUS. We even have an international. We have CoCoRaHS observers in Canada. We have them in the Bahamas. We have them in Jamaica, and it's just amazing to see these observers and their reports that they put onto the map every single morning. So you can go and look, and there's at least 25,000 additional observations across the entire U.S. every morning of rainfall. And we've all been there. We've all seen it. The rain is falling on one side of the street, and it's not falling at our house. And so having those extra observers really does kind of help us track that precipitation.
And we're taking a look at the map right there on our screen. So thank you for describing that. Folks at home, they're watching this map as you explain it. The big story in the Carolinas, not even just in the Carolinas, through a big part of the United States, the drought.
Yeah.
How important are these observers when it comes to the drought? Because, I mean, you're talking about something we haven't seen in nearly 20 years, give or take.
Yeah, so this graph just kind of gives you the idea of, as we through our observer networks that we've had over the since 1895 to present, just kind of showing South Carolina and the annual average that we can see, but then you can see these long-term trends in the data. And we've really been in kind of a wet period since 2015, but if you look prior to 2015, we had those droughts of record that were in the late 90s, early 2000s. We had the was 99 to 2001, 2005 to 2008, and then 2010 to about 2012. Those particular droughts were really impactful across the Southeast, especially here in the Carolinas. And what we're seeing now is our CoCoRaHS observers, they're reporting the same number over and over again, and it's zero. But knowing exactly where it's rained and where it hasn't rained is really instrumental when we're putting in our suggestions to drought response committees, when we're looking at providing information from the local level to the U.S. Drought Monitor. So each one of those observations that's in as a zero, while it might be boring because it's fun to measure the rain, and it's not fun when there's just dust in your rain gauge, but each one of those zeros is really important. And in addition to the numerical value that our CoCoRaHS observers are able to enter in, they also can enter in comments. And so I've had one observer who remarked that he's been observing at his location since 2012, and this is the driest April he's seen since 2012. There's another unique feature of the CoCoRaHS program that's called condition monitoring, where some of our observers will actually go in every week and they'll report what the conditions are like, whether they're too wet or too dry. And that really gives us an idea of how quickly some of these impacts are escalating.
Melissa, in addition to rain, CoCoRaHS observers, as I understand it, can also report things like hail and other types of severe weather. So what other types of measurements do you get from them?
So just like this past January, where we had the amazing snow, especially up in the York County, Charlotte metro area. So our CoCoRaHS observers do measure snow, and that's everything from the snow on the ground to what we call snow water equivalent, which gives us an idea of how much moisture is actually in that snow. And then of course hail is another a precipitation type. We necessarily don't get hail as much here in the Carolinas as they do in other parts of the U.S., but we do have the ability for them to take pictures and submit pictures like the ones that were just shown, and they can tell us a little bit about the size of the hail, the different type of stone consistency of the hail. Was it just a bunch of little clumped together hail, or were they larger hailstones? There's really no quantitative database on hail, so CoCoRaHS has really kind of set the stage for us to be able to monitor hail, look at the hail that we get from these particular thunderstorms. That all then goes back to the research side of it and looking at thunderstorms and being able to determine what storms might produce what size hail.
An amazing interview. The Assistant State Climatologist for South Carolina. Thank you for your time. Thank you for national, not only just giving us info on National Weather Observers Day, but so much more. Melissa, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.